So the big five of recovery, what this refers to is if you're going to miss certain things, don't miss these five. Because if you get those in place, the men that I've seen get through to victory, these are well in place. These are consistently part of their journey. And so the big five regions, areas, aspects, and not really steps because they're actually concurrent. They're all happening at the same time. It's not like I'll do this, then I do this, then this. No, these things are all happening at the same time. And so let me walk with you through what I believe are these big five, that the guys that have made it through, the guys that are, hitting it, to the 1,000 days free and all that stuff. These things are entrenched for these guys. And so let me walk with you through them. First of all, you've got to commit to authentic accountability. For the guys in the group, you'll remember the day I brought in Larry. Larry's my accountability partner of 29 years now. And before that, I had 8 years with other men in Saskatchewan. And so I've met weekly for 37 years. And if you want to go real deep, ask me for this set of 65 questions that we would go through every 3 months, because there's nothing that you can hide. If you're going to be honest, these questions cover everything. And so, but what I'm saying is we need to have authentic accountability. Authentic means I'm willing to open up and share. I'm really going to be honest. And the other part of that is you need a wingman that has some teeth. We don't need a guy who's, oh, poor you. Oh, that's too bad. Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. I know it's hard. We don't need that. We need a guy who says, look, I love you. I'm going to fight for you. And grabs you like this and say, come on, let's get this thing going, right? That's why we call it grit and grace, right? I did a whole talk on grit and grace, the balance of understanding God's grace and knowing his forgiveness, and that he will cover all my sin. But at the same time, grit means I want to push forward, and I need a guy who's going to be like sandpaper to rough off my rough edges, as it were. And so make sure you get a guy that's got some teeth, and you need both a team, like this group's a team. What we got going on WhatsApp, that's a team. We're encouraging one another, praying for one another, giving encouraging words to one another. That's so incredible. So we need the team, but we need one guy. When I was at camp as a kid growing up, lifeguards used to have what's called the buddy system. And every time they'd blow the whistle, they'd yell, buddy, and you had to grab the hand of your buddy and lift up his hand. Do you remember that kind of stuff? Where there was always the responsibility of one other person. And when the whistle went, you had to find your buddy and, raise hands together. And if there wasn't somebody in twos, we had a problem. Matter of fact, I remember people wanting to go in the pool. No, you can't wait till there's a buddy. Then all of a sudden, okay, well, you be my buddy. And it's a guy you don't even know, but you want to go swimming. So now you have to be close enough to this guy all the time. So when the whistle blows, you can hold your hand up. You see, you got a buddy. Now we got a team, okay? This is like our squad. This is like our unit. But you got one guy that you are accountable to, and you're really deep with this guy. He knows you, you know him. And that's where you're going to be fully honest. Matter of fact, you got to be done with lying. Done with lying. Now we know that people who are addicts are also addicted to lying. We're addicted to covering. We're addicted to all kinds of things. But there needs to be a full disclosure and an immediate disclosure. If you mess up, if you relapse, you got to go right now. I got to be, hey, listen, let me give you a call because I just relapsed. Or wisdom would say, when you're struggling, reach out to the team and reach out to your wingman. So there's the one guy and there's the team. And so I love having this team of men around me. And so the authentic accountability with the one man has to be consistent and regular. And by the way, regular is, we meet regular once a year. Okay. That's not going to cut it. Right. I got guys who say, I got an accountability partner. I says, well, how often do you meet? Well, he's a buddy from college. I says, how often do you meet? Well, we've been really close for years. How often do you meet? Finally he says, well, he lives in Toronto and we talk on the phone about every 3 months for half an hour. Oh yeah, that's going to rock your world. That's going to really help you. Right. So the idea of having one person that you meet with regularly, and regularly, by the way, for me, it's weekly. I'd recommend that for you. You say, well, Currie, that's a lot of time between this group and meeting with the other guy. What? But it depends if you want to get healthy and free. That's the question. And so as a part of accountability, number one, you reach out for help when you're struggling. You reach out to the team and you reach out to the individual that's your wingman, but you also reach out to help. You got to start realizing that you can be an encouragement to somebody else. And I love this image. If I'm going up a steep climb, some hike near here, some like the Abbey Grind or something, if there's a part that's really steep, I I might take the hand of my wife and I might help her up through a steep part. It's a funny thing because as I help my wife up, I'm actually going up the hill myself. Now my pace might change a little, but helping someone else up the hill, you're still going up the hill yourself. And so you got to understand the value of accountability, what you bring to the other man on the team, and even what you bring to the other man that you're a wingman with. Um, so if you're really going to make it, one of the big five is without a doubt, authentic accountability. It's straight up honesty, weekly meeting, talking openly, praying for one another, and pushing each other to be the man God wants you to be. That's number one. Number two is you got to understand addiction's impact on you. I mean, I know likely at least 80% of the stories, maybe even more, of the men on this call. And I know I could start listing, well, for this guy, this is how you lied to yourself and the impact it had on you. And you this guy, this. And there's a lot of different ways that the addiction has had impact on us. But first of all, you got to realize the grip it has on you. Okay, just like the father would grab a 2-year-old toddler near the street corner, on the busy traffic street. He's not just holding the hand of the child, he's actually grabbing the wrist because he's got a grip that's like a death grip because he doesn't want the kid to bolt and get hit by a car. So he grabs the kid by the wrist. And if the kid takes a step off the curb, he just picks the kid up. You see, you can understand that there's a grip the enemy has on you because of the addiction. That's why it's called addiction for a reason. That we're compelled to go back to it, and of course the repeated cycle of porn, masturbation, orgasm, layers of it over and over again has created neurological pathways in your brain that are like a superhighway, and that's just kind of, well, we kind of open the day and we kind of go down this road because that's the big superhighway that we've created by the repeated use of porn and acting out in a variety of ways. And so we've got to realize that there's a grip on me, and that rewiring my brain is going to take some time. Stopping the cycle of the porn, masturbation, orgasm, and that whole thing is only part of it. Yes, I need to put up roadblocks. That's why Covenant Eyes is there. I want to stop myself from getting to anything questionable. But the real work is actually renewing my mind, cleaning my mind, because I have to rewire it in a direction that honors God. And so rewiring the brain takes time. And it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 2, and it says, and be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so the idea of renewing your mind is really critical here, but the addiction is really serious. You also got to realize the distortion that has come on your view of sex and women. People underplay this. You see, because let's just say that for most people, you start looking at porn sometime around 13, 12, 13, 11, whatever. And there's been, thousands of visits to porn sites. And so you've lost any ability to be creative with your spouse down the road. If you're not married, yeah, that's you. For those of you who are married, you don't realize how much this exposure to porn has impacted your view of women, of closeness, of commitment, of sexuality. And so you approach sexuality from the worldview that you've developed with all the porn. And so because you're in it, you don't realize how distorted it is. I don't have them close here. Yes, I do. Hang on. So I have a set of my sunglasses here. And other than looking incredibly cool, I want to say this. Uh, if my whole life I have worn these sunglasses, right? This white piece of paper, everybody say, yeah, that's white. And I'd go, oh, okay. So that's white. But it's actually, to me, it's kind of a little grayish color, right? And everything in my world is tinted by what's on my eyes. And so what happens is porn actually discolors your view of things. So having these glasses on, yes, it protects me from the sun. So that was a good reason to have sunglasses on, but it actually distorts my true colors in this world. And so porn is like the sunglasses. And when I start to come clean, it starts to go like this. Watch. All of a sudden, I go, oh my goodness, is that really white? Is that really how it is? And so you've had this on for so long, you kind of go, oh, well, listen, I'm more used to that. So you put this back on, you continue with the PMO cycle. But as you start to come clean, you start to see things honestly, and God's got to help you take off these dark glasses that have influenced you for so many years. And so that's the rewiring that needs to take place in your brain. That's the recognition of the distortion that's come about women, sexuality, a respect of women, and it's going to take some time to rebuild healthy patterns and healthy perspectives, because addiction has really polluted you and tinted your whole view of God's view of sex. So that's number two. You got to understand addiction's impact on you, and that's why it's wise to just read stuff about addiction. Like just to read, I was thinking, and this wasn't with regard to Lane losing, his friend to cancer, but I've been with people who have some new malady. They have some issues, some problem. In this case, we'll use cancer as an illustration. And they start reading about cancer, and they start going to websites. They start reading all these blogs of cancer and what diets and what's this and what that. Well, what happens is they become fixated on wanting to try to address this. That's what needs to happen with you. You need to read about addiction. You need to understand more about addiction. You need to ask guys questions about addiction. You need to be open about, this is what I see is, do I have weird glasses on this one? What's the truth on that? And so there's lots of work to do in understanding your addiction. Thirdly, we got to commit to authentic accountability, understand addiction's impact on you. Thirdly, we got to face our dark side. Face our dark side. And this is where doing the step work comes in. Through self-evaluation and God evaluation, we can start to understand who we are and how we operate, what motivates us, what distracts us, our selfish tendencies, and our pride, our sinful behavior. Because you see, if we start to face our dark side, we start to own our junk. See, because there's two things going on. There's choices I make that hurt others, and there's choices others have made that hurt me. One is my junk that I hurt others, and the other is my soul wounds where others have hurt me, where I feel rejected, where I feel maligned, where I feel cut out, where I feel abandoned, where I feel mistreated, where I feel like I'm not worth anything. Those are the soul wounds that go on inside. And in those, because of addiction, sometimes part of the thing we have to work through is just shame and feeling like, we'll never amount to anything and those kind of things. So on one hand, we have the junk that I'm responsible for because those are things that I did that I have to address. On the other side is the soul wounds where others have hurt me, and I've got to address those wounds to be free. So we need to find out what's driving us to our addiction. So I need to take responsibility both for my life choices that I've made and the impact of others on me. So someone says, well, it's not fair. It's not fair. This happened to me, or I was hurt in this way. And you're right. It shouldn't have happened. God didn't want to attack. He doesn't want anybody to be hurting anybody. But even though, if I'm driving down number one highway here out in front of my house, I can see it from my house. If I'm driving down the freeway and a semi driver falls asleep and his semi comes across the ditch and comes up my side and smokes my car, I didn't avoid it. I maybe didn't see it coming. Who knows? But I'm on my side of the freeway. I'm driving in the correct lane. And you can say, well, it wasn't my fault. Now, if I got a couple of broken legs and whatever, I could say, well, it's not my fault. I shouldn't have to do the rehab. Well, guess who's not going to have healthy legs? Me. You see, because even though something's not your fault, doesn't mean it's not your responsibility to address. And so that's where you've got to keep growing. You got to own your stuff and take responsibility and face your stuff, your dark side. But you also have to own the fact that you've been hurt by others and have soul wounds. And that's a real complicated thing, to really look deep at who you are. Centuries ago, Aristotle said this: an unexamined life is not worth living. And he's challenging us to say, look, take a good look at who you are. And where needed, take responsibility for hurts you've caused, make amends, and do the dark cloud removal, get things right, and own your stuff in front of the people that you've hurt. But facing your dark side is really critical, because you'll start to understand sometimes where your liability is to go towards the addiction, because you feel hurt, broken, rejected, and you get into that mood. And then in the bad mood, you go off to your addiction to kind of get your little, reward, your little, poor you, et cetera. And the addiction keeps feeding off that. And so you need to face your dark side. So 1, commit to authentic accountability. 2, understand addiction's impact on you and learn all you can about addiction. 3, you got to face your dark side and ask God to help you understand your selfishness and also your soul wounds. 4thly, the guys that have really made it, and why this is part of the big 5 of recovery, they have paid the price for freedom. When we go in November to Remembrance Day, and we thank God for these men and women that have gone to war to keep our countries free. They paid the price with their life. They paid the price for freedom, and we enjoy the freedom today. Well, one of the things you've got to understand that paying the price is costly. And if you're going to enjoy freedom from this addiction, you're going to have to pay a price. It's costly. It takes work. It takes time. And I like to say it like this: you're going to have to push for a season. Maybe a good way to help understand it is, if a person has got out of shape really bad, put on unnecessary weight and, has, can barely walk around the block without sucking air. If they're weak, physically and all that, to get back in shape is going to take a lot of work. Okay. It's going to take a lot of work, regular balanced eating, lots of exercise, just some working out, part of the journey. So getting back in shape takes a lot of work. But once you got it back in shape, maintaining that shape and just staying healthy doesn't take as much work as getting back in shape. And I mean, no, I'm not the perfect example of being in shape, but let me tell you one thing that's helped me. Years and years ago, I made a commitment that to my wife, actually, that I was going to retire with a flat stomach, like when I hit 65. But I also picked a number in my head that my weight wouldn't go above. Now, I'm not in stellar shape right now, but it wouldn't take me long to get in shape because I'm not very far off. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I need tone in my muscles and my cardio would be down a bit, but I haven't let it go too far. So why I bring this up is, once you realize you want to get this freedom from the addiction, you'll have to pay a price for a season to get in shape with regard to the addiction. You're going to have to work hard to get in shape, but you work hard for a season, then you maintain the addiction, and you're not doing the 12-step program, the 4th time, the 5th time, the 6th time. Now, some guys do because they want to really establish it. So I'm not arguing against that. But once you've done it the 2nd time through, you've really established a spiritual and life fitness plan. And so then you can maintain, you do things that are going to just, keep you in a healthy zone. But for a season, you're going to have to work. You got to stop the excuses, stop blaming your wife, stop justifying why it's too hard. I'm too busy. Okay. Well, what happens is you're too busy for this to make the changes needed, but it'll keep messing you up over and over again for a season of your life. And that's where you're going to have to come to grips with the fact that it's going to take work. Now, I threw this in here. I could have thrown it up under the understands addiction's impact on you. And I've talked about it a little bit. I will certainly talk about this more in maybe one whole session. But when a person starts getting addicted in the early teen years, they develop what I call emotional adolescence, because they're supposed to be maturing at 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 into an other-centered, balanced man. And what happens is they're so focused on the addiction, they're so self-absorbed that they kind of get stuck at age 14. They get stuck, excuses, blaming others, this is too hard. And of course, if you pay the price for freedom, you're not going to be this emotional adolescent. Now, sometimes when I talk to you guys individually, and you're actually saying this now because you heard me enough say it, I know this sounds like an excuse. You know, if it sounds like an excuse, guess what? It is an excuse. I know this sounds like an excuse, but, and then you justify why, you know, this is too hard for you, Currie, you don't understand how hard it is for me, you know, my world is different, you know, it's harder for me. And you know what? That's a whiny 14-year-old who blames everybody else why he's late for work. Well, mom didn't get me up, or I didn't hear my alarm, or, you know, he hit it, he turned it off. And, you know, it's just not fair that I have to be on time all the time. Well, what does that sound like? It sounds like a kid who hasn't grown up yet. And what did he get? He got fired. He got fired because he's an adolescent trying to make excuses for childish behavior. So part of the price is growing up. Realize that, yes, my addiction is going to take some work. And so like regular attendance to these meetings. I mean, we've said that your way out of this meeting is a whole year clear and the plan all done, minimum. Now, you don't have to come ever again. But you need to know that we're on a journey to help each other to be free. Because this addiction has beat the heck out of you for too long, and you want freedom, and you're in this group because we got grit and grace. We're going to love you and fight for you and be your wingman, team men, because you got to have an individual wingman, but regular attendance to this and pay the price. One guy on this call right now, the challenge for me to him was, hey, if you got the time, why don't you spend 3 to 4 hours on Saturday morning working on your program, working on your step work? 3 to 4 hours. Commit to that. Report into me that you did at least 3 hours on Saturday morning. Well, see, there's paying the price for freedom. And, you know, it'd be great if that person and anybody else here did that regularly. And some of you say, okay, 2 nights a week, I'm going to work for an hour on it. Whatever you can work in, but don't just go week after week and don't do anything. Because then you're just staying static. You're not working against it. So you got to pay the price for freedom. And finally, we've talked now about commit to authentic accountability. We talked about understand addiction's impact on you, how you have to face your dark side and work through your issues and also the hurts that others have brought to you. You got to pay the price for freedom by working hard. It's going to take work. It's going to take time. And finally, you got to live in complete surrender to Jesus. I was thinking this morning as I was just putting this all together, you know, I don't know how long I'm going to keep doing this group, and that doesn't mean I'm thinking of quitting. Let's just say I do it for 5-7 years. And let's just say that, you know, you guys come and you work for freedom and then you get free and you're thanking God and your wife's grateful and you're here for 2 years and you really are free. You got your plan to maintain it. Everything's good. And you're done with the group. It would kill me if after you've been in a group 2 years, that the number one thing you didn't take from this is realizing the non-negotiable difference that Jesus makes in a life when you're fully surrendered to him. That you realize that trusting Jesus is the best way to go. That you realize that, remember, putting it all on the table, giving him everything is the only way to live, to be wise. You see, the beautiful thing is, you heard that old song, he's got the whole world in his hands. And when I give Jesus my life, he can mesh my life with the whole world because I'm in cooperation with him. So when I give him my life, Jesus whatever you want me to do, however you want me to operate, Jesus, I give you my life. And my faith grows, and I want to get closer to him. I continue a Bible reading plan, so I keep growing there. And I'm in prayer daily for myself and my needs, like we talk in our check-ins, praying morning and praying at night, that God would give us one day at a time clean, and praying for others more. But what happens is, over time, God does a complete worldview change. I look at life through his eyes. I look at life through his grid, through his lens. I take off, as it were, the lens of pornography that tinted me in the wrong way. And I by God's grace, I see clearly, more than ever before, how God wants me to look at life. And so for me, the non-negotiable difference that Jesus makes is what's going to anchor you. And if you were in my program for 2 years and you didn't walk away and saying, well, I'll tell you one thing, I'm way better friends with Jesus than when I started that group. If that's not true of you, then I've failed. Because my personal life experience is anchored by a complete surrender to Jesus. Jesus, whatever you want from me today, I want to live your way. I let his Holy Spirit convict me of my selfishness and stupidity. I let him motivate me how I'm to love and encourage others. I keep God's word in my life in front of me, regularly reading his word, but a complete surrender to Jesus. Because you know what? The battle to get free is a supernatural battle. You're going to need the Lord in your life to get free. You're going to need to surrender everything to him. And he's going to be pointing out things in your life that you need to deal with. And just listen to him. He's a loving father. He wants the best for you. He loves you and has got a great plan for you. And as it says in Jeremiah 29:11, he has plans for you, not to harm you, but to prosper you. And I don't mean prosper like the prosperity gospel where I'm going to get rich. No, to bring healing and hope. Any of you have been in my office, I often point to the picture of my kids and their spouses and my grandkids. And I say, that picture makes me a millionaire. It's not that I'm financially strong. It's because, well, God blesses even there. But prosperity is about what God's doing in your life. God's changing you. God is the great change agent, and he'll never give up on you. He'll be the best wingman you ever have. And so my challenge to us all is, if you're going to understand full recovery, the big five, and this is where you got to ask yourself, where am I a little thin? Because if these are the five that are going to get you freedom, where are you thin? Are you authentically accountable to one guy and to the group? Quitting lying, being honest about any relapses. Number two, you start to really dig into understanding porn addiction, sex addiction. You're learning all you can about it. Thirdly, you're starting to face your dark side, your soul wounds, your own selfishness. You're starting to face your dark side and deal with you. And fourthly, you're going to pay the price. It takes work. It takes time. I'm going to work hard to overcome. And finally, whatever it takes to live in complete surrender to Jesus every day, that's where you need to go. So men, those are the big five. That's what it looks like to really get free. Now there's lots of nuances and other specifics, but those five will anchor you and get you to a better place. And that's what I recommend for you all.